Hey, everybody, welcome back to Simply Shemane. I'm so glad you're here. I hope your day is going well. I hope everybody is going to have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. My guest on today's show is unbelievable. I'm so excited to have him here. Richard Paul Evans is the author of 35 New York Times best-selling books. His number one global bestseller, The Christmas Box, was written as an expression of love for his then two young daughters and sold more than 8 million copies. 7 of Richard's books were produced into television movies, and he founded the Christmas Box International, an organization devoted to maintaining emergency shelters and providing services and resources for abused, neglected, or homeless children, teens, and young adults. To date, more than 85,000 children have been served by the Christmas Box House facilities and programs. Richard, it's such an honor to have you here.
It's great to be with you. You got an old introduction. We've actually helped 125,000 abused children. And my latest book is my 41st New York Times bestseller.
Wow. Well, I got it off your website, bro. So
yeah, that's my fault. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there is a big difference between 35 and 41 best-selling books, but nevertheless, I'm so honored to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. I feel like I already know you, and I'm so glad that you said yes.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about most is, as a writer myself, a lot of people are interested in getting started in writing, and your books have such a heart and soul behind them. There's such a spirit. It's not like any book that you open up and there's a pretty generic story. From the get-go, I literally have goosebumps because I'm reading your new book, The Noel Letters, and it draws you in. It's riveting, and it's the most remarkable book that I have ever read.
Oh, thank you. Wow. You know what? When I started, I wasn't like my daughter, for instance. She's also a New York Times bestselling author now, but she went to years of school and studied, and she was my assistant. But it's like, for me, it was just something that just came. And so when I first started writing, I looked at it as, well, I was an ad guy. So I was writing radio commercials, and no one wants to listen to a radio commercial. Not really. You have to make them want to. So everything was like begging for your attention. So a few of us, like James Patterson, who I know, and myself, it's like we're both ad guys. So when we write really short chapters, and there's a lot of them. And they have to draw you in immediately, because we assume if we don't have you by the first couple paragraphs, you're going to go off and watch Netflix.
And that's true. That's true. You got to draw me in. Usually the first sentence I can be drawn in. But how do you go about, do you write books or do the books write you?
The books write me. I've never once written a book I thought I was. And so the book, Noel Letters, that's out right now, I really didn't know if it was any good. It just about broke me. Okay, when I'm writing it, I'm behind schedule, it's coming slow, and they gave me a hard deadline. It's like, if you want the book to come out this Christmas, you have to have it on this day. And I'm thinking, I'm only halfway done. This is impossible. And so I locked myself into a hotel room, and I went on this marathon where I'd write till 2 a.m, sleep for a couple hours, write some more. And I remember my assistant came over, she brought me some lunch, and I go, it's like, I can't believe I've been here a week. And she looked at me and she said, you've been here 10 days. Do you know what day it is? I said, I have no idea. And so when I finished it, I set it off at 3:30 a.m. I pushed the button. It's like, it's done. It's 3:30 a.m, but in a pandemic, but I should celebrate something, right? And I sit on the bed, and all of a sudden the room starts spinning. It's like, I'm going to pass out. And I lay down in a fetal position. It's like, okay, this is the book that broke me. And the next morning I called my assistant. I said, you need to come get me. I'm really sick. And my wife came, and I put on an ice pack, and we drove down to my ranch. And it took me like 3 days to get my head back. And it's like, that thing just about killed me. So I assumed it was awful, right? It's like, I don't know what this book is. And so then my wife reads it, and you know how they say you can't see the forest for the trees? I couldn't even see the tree. My head was so stuck into the tree. It's like, I don't know if it's any good. I just know it just about killed me, and I gave everything I had. And then my wife comes back and she goes, this is really good. And I go, really? She goes, no, this is like my favorite of your 41 novels. I go, are you kidding me? I'm not going to suffer that much with the next one, right? And then I start getting these great national reviews from people who hate me, like Kirkus, and Booklist, and saying this is a great read, man. It's a smart read. Go buy it. And it's just like, I guess it's good, but I worked really hard on it, and I'm glad people liked it. I'm glad you liked it.
So when you say it nearly broke you, do you mean emotionally too, or just physically because you put so much effort into it?
Both. Both. This is not the book I thought I was writing. I think it's much more intense. It's about a young woman coming back to see her father as he's dying. And she hasn't talked to him in years, and she just wants to see him he wants to see her. She doesn't really want to come. And then she gets here, and he dies before she gets here. And what turns out to, she thinks it's going to be a short visit, turns out to be this awakening that nothing she believed was true. And these kinds of experiences are really intense. And I love writing stories of redemption. But, it's like the scripture in John, the truth will set you free. I've had these experiences where it's like the world's a very different place than I thought it was. And when you awaken like that, then it's a game changer. And I'm hoping my readers have that experience with it.
It's a game changer. I can tell you that. So tell us about the Michael Vase series and what prompted you to write that? Oh,
that was sheer fun. When I first wrote that series, I didn't even tell my agent. I was a kid with comic books, right? I was raised poor. I would go out and I would rake leaves and get enough money to buy a comic book and a Twinkie. And life doesn't get better than that. I'd come back and read about Iron Man or the Beast and have a Twinkie. It's like life is good. And then I read these books that are really sentimental and they're made into Hallmark movies. But part of me was yearning to write about this superhero kid. And I didn't want to get into it because all these people are trying to jump on Twilight and Harry Potter. And it's like that really was me. I really wanted to do it. So I wrote it, and then I gave it to my agent. She's like, you wrote a book in the middle of everything? I said, yeah. So she reads it and she goes, this is the best thing you've ever written. This is incredible. So we start trying to send it off, and my publisher literally thought we would sell 30,000 copies in its lifetime of the entire series. 30,000 copies. We did that the first 2 hours it came out. But they didn't want, they were kind of hedging on it. They didn't believe in it. And then I get a call from radio show host Glenn Beck. And he goes, I hear you have a book you're working on. And I said, yeah. He goes, can I see it? And so I sent it to him. His agent gives it to a 13-year-old boy across the street and says, get back in a week. The kid comes over the next morning. He was up all night reading it and said, this is the best book I've ever read. And so Glenn calls me. He goes, I want to partner with you on this. And it went nuts. It debuted at #1 on the New York Times, and it sold 3 million copies worldwide. It's huge. We're looking at a possible movie series right now with it. And but it's, to me, my last book signing for this one, the book that no one won, I had 4,000 kids came to my book signing. And so, awesome. It was, and I took a picture with every one of those kids.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And you make their day too. You have the great ability and knack to weave in morals and values. And do you think about that before or at all? Even though you think of a title or maybe an outline, does that come up at all? What's the message of this book?
No, it's more a matter of just who I am, and it comes through. It's interesting because right now my book, the Noel Letters. If you look on Amazon, it's the #1 Christian book in America. Well, I never thought of it as a Christian book. It's it's not blatant, but I have no problem with that because I'm a Christian. And so I think it's great, but it just kind of comes through with what I write. In this case, I just wanted to write about truth. And I wanted to write about forgiveness. And I was hoping that it might be something that might heal some relationships around the world.
I love that. What advice would you give to new authors, people who are just starting out? I know a lot of people, and myself, I'm writing books, and I've always wanted to write novels too. But what advice would you give to aspiring authors who have that idea ruminating in the back of their minds?
The most important thing, and I since have found that this is the same thing that like John Steinbeck and Stephen King tell you, but I had to learn this on my own. I wrote my first book, not for the world. I wrote this little book called The Christmas Box for my 2 little girls for when they grow up. And it was a Christmas present. I made 20 copies. I was literally done. I didn't even do a copyright on it. I was just like, it is what it is. And my next door neighbor happens to be a copyright attorney. He went and did the work for me. He just said, this is better than you think. He goes,
Wow.
you're gonna thank me someday. I did. I actually put him in the movie. He goes, you'll thank me someday for doing this. But at the time I say, I don't care. I don't care about it. I'm just giving it away. Well, that little book, because it was so real, I wanted them to understand that they had basically just transformed my life. I didn't want to be a father, and which was news to my wife. Something she probably should have asked before we got married. And then this little girl comes, Jenna, and holy cow, nothing else mattered. I was so smitten and so in love with being a father and with these. And then another little girl came, and we're like buddies. They're my best friends. Couldn't wait to get home. They're at the window waving. Dad, they're so excited. It's like Christmas every day. And it's like, I wanted to capture this moment as a father. And so I remember I self-published the book, and it just kept being spread, and people would read, and they're calling. And so I self-published the book. It hit #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. At the time, it was in 5% of the bookstores in America when it hit #2. So they knew I've been called the godfather of self-publishing. At this point, all the publishers, I'm getting calls. People are offering me millions of dollars for the book. And it goes up at an auction. I sell it to Simon & Schuster for just for American rights, $4.25 million, just for hardcover rights. And the book's a monster. It was the biggest book sales of, one of the biggest of the century, actually. And then they pay me to write another book. And that's when it got real, because I don't know. Well, they didn't pay me to write another book. They paid me to write another bestseller. Well, so I'm working on this, and everything I write is just junk, right? I just keep working. And one day I had this epiphany. I'm out walking, which is what I do when I have writer's block. And it suddenly occurs to me, the most important moment in my career, I have no idea how to write a bestseller. And it's like, I don't know how to write a bestseller. I didn't sit down. All I know how to do is write a book, not for millions, but a book just for me. And I thought, I'm just going to go out in flames, but I'm just going to write the book I want to read. And that's what I did. I wrote a book called Timepiece, was made into a movie with James Earl Jones and Academy Award winner Ellen Burstyn. And but it was just like, I have to accept failure, because I usually say, Shemane, I don't even know your phone number. I actually do. It's like, Shemane, I don't know your phone number. How do I know what you want to read? How do I know it's going to touch your heart? I don't know. And so what I do know is I can write things that are really close to my heart. And so like this book, Noel Letters, 5 times I actually stopped and wiped tears from my eyes. So whether anyone likes it or not, I don't know, but I know that it moved me and that there are really profound moments. There's a scene in the book when a butterfly lands next to him. And when that came to me, it was a gift. I don't know where it came from. It was just there. And I literally gasped when I saw this, when in my mind I saw this. And so these books are gifts. And so I tell people who want to be writers, don't try to write a bestseller, because you don't know how to. Don't try to write for people you don't know. Just write you. And you can always tell when someone's faking it. You can always tell when they're trying to sound smarter than they are. It's just like, no, just tell a story and tell it the way you tell it.
I love that. You also write nonfiction, and you wrote a book, The 5 Lessons a Millionaire Taught Me About Money for Women. And when we come back, can you stick around for a few more minutes? Because when we come back, I want to unpack that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back.
We are living in a time of uncertainty, a time when so many things feel outside of our control. Many Americans are concerned about what this means for their future and for their retirement. At Senior Care of Michigan, we believe strongly in helping people take control of their financial future through proper planning and risk management. Let us help you achieve the retirement that you deserve. To schedule a free consultation, call our office or visit us online today.
Welcome back to Simply Shemane. My guest, Richard Paul Evans, is an amazing author. I don't want to say how many books you have sold because it's really discouraging to those of us who are authors. But you did write a book that kind of talks about that, about money and geared towards women. That's nonfiction. Richard, can you tell us a little bit about that and why did you decide to write that book?
Okay, I've sold 35 million copies of my books.
Thanks for rubbing it in.
The reason I wrote the 5 lessons, it actually, I gave away all the money to charity on that. It was because I wanted people to know I'm not a money guy. But what happened when I was poor, when I was little, we were pretty poor. I came from a family with 10. And my dad, he fell on a job site and broke both of his legs. And so all 10 of us moved into a 2-bedroom duplex. So I slept on the floor for 2 years. I mean, some people have bedrooms. I didn't have a bed. I just slept on the floor. And I really decided I hated being poor, right? I was mostly afraid. I was afraid they're going to arrest my dad for not paying bills. Because I remember someone screaming at my mother locking herself in the room for the rest of the day because she was so shaking because we were late on rent and they're going to kick us out. And so during this time, I had an amazing experience. This really great man, his name was Kerry Hines. He invited all the youth in the area to a free lecture about money. And Kerry Hines was remarkable. He had actually picked potatoes with the migrant workers. It's like I related to him. It's like, yeah, we're poor too. And he became the wealthiest man I knew. You know, he owned businesses. He owned the #1 basketball team in America at the time. And the fact that he did this was to give back. And he taught me. I'm 12 years old. I'm writing down with my pencil what he told me and how he became wealthy. And I started doing it at the age of 12. And so by the time I was 30, I was a multimillionaire. And I got to go back to him and thank him for what he taught me. I wanted to share that. And I didn't want people to think everyone's like trying to make money off of teaching you how to be rich. I didn't want that. So I gave away all the proceeds to charity to help abused children. And it was just kind of a blessing. And I have, to this day, I have people tell me it, saved their marriage and their life. And it's a pretty fun book. And I'm glad I did it.
Wow. So what are a couple of the lessons that women need to know about money?
Oh, they should just go online and read it. But the first thing I learned, the thing that hit me really hard was when he said a portion of everything you earn is yours to keep. And it's like, well, it's all mine. He goes, well, you give it all away. And so to start saving, and then this idea of creating this nest egg. And so and to this day I do it. And I just start building. I remember I went and I bought a piece of silver, a little silver round like this. And to me as a poor kid, it's like, this was like gold. I just like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. I have a piece of silver. And what happened, I kept buying those. And then the Hunt brothers ran the silver up. I mean, by the time I was 18, I had like $10,000. And I had more money than my parents. I was loaning them money and I paid for a church mission with all my money and I paid for my college. And I learned to be self-sufficient at the age of 14. And I'm really grateful for that because I learned at a young age that if something's going to happen, to not wait for someone else to do it for me. And if I wanted it, my parents couldn't afford it. And and I had a brother who's also very smart with money. He goes, you should be the one who helps people, not asks for help. And that became how I wanted to live. And I see I loved doing the 5 lessons for women because there are so many women who have been hurt and have been left. And I'm a father with 4 daughters. And I mean, I'll do anything for them. I'll die for them. I mean, I love them. And it's like, and I see this with other men's daughters. And it's good to help them. I want to help them. I want to take care of them like my own daughters.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so important and it makes what you do even more special. Tell us about your charity.
Okay, this is really cool. I get a little passionate about this. Okay, so when we started, all of a sudden, like I said, we're being offered millions of dollars. So we sell my first book, $4.25 million. We're living in a seriously a 1,200 square foot home. We're living in this tiny little box. I'm making $30,000 a year, and all of a sudden, it's like all this money. And it's like, so we start meeting with financial consultants, and every meeting we have is depressing because they're talking about how to set up trust when our kids are drug addicts and alcoholics and how we're going to ruin their lives. And finally, we walk out of this meeting. We're in our little minivan, right? I'm still driving a Honda Civic, and I mean, literally once I stopped to get a hamburger, and I'm getting change, and I just gotten a $4 million check and I had no money. I'm like getting changed. The woman was going to buy the hamburger for me. And anyway, so my wife is sitting there. We're sitting in our minivan. She goes, Rick, let's just give all the money back. She really said that. I'm like, well, hold on a second. I've been poor. I don't want to go back there. So we decided, well, money isn't good or bad. It's power. And power in the right hands is a really good thing. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, let's just teach our children how to use power. So we held a conference. I went to my dad, who was a social worker, and I said, would you find out what we need to do to help abused children? Mm-hmm. And so he went to the dean of the Graduate School of Social Work at the University of Utah and said, what's the most important thing we can do? And they had no idea. He goes, I don't know. And he goes, well, who knows? If you don't know, you're teaching to social workers. And he goes, let's hold a conference. So the first thing we did with our money is we sponsored a conference. We brought in every child advocate we could from the West. And we asked them a question, what do the kids need? And what we learned is that these people didn't like each other. They wouldn't sit at the same tables. They were competing with each other. And they all wanted the same thing, but because they were divided, they couldn't make it happen. So that was the genesis of the Christmas Box House. We started to build a shelter. It was $1 million over budget. Carrie and I, it just about bankrupted us. By the end, in fact, I had a meeting on that today. I still have loans out from 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. We were taking loans to keep it going after we used up all of our money. And it was miserable. Mm-hmm. The first 4 years were completely miserable. And at one point I came in, I want to tell a story. It's really powerful. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I came in and it was a really bad day. It was another day I had to get another loan, and Carrie was mad for good reason. She goes, it was one thing that I had used all of our money. It was another thing that it wasn't working and no one cared. And we had a motto, no good deed goes unpunished. And she came in and she just lost it. She was really upset. And I went down to my man cave because it's like, she's right. She's just looking out for me and us, and it's like, you need to stop this. And as I'm sitting there, I start praying. I said, God, I can barely fight the world. This is killing me. But if my wife is against me, I can't do it. I go, I believe you want me to do it, but to be divided at home, I can't do it. I go, you have to help me. I need some help. And no one was giving us money. They're saying like $5 checks for a $2 million facility. It's like, I need help. And then that night, the answer came in a really different way. About 2 hours later, Carrie buzzes me in my office and she goes, our son, Michael, who's 18 months, she goes, Michael's sick. I go, oh. And he has a fever. And so I go upstairs and his fever is up above 100. And then another hour watching him, it's up to 104. And now it's like midnight. And it's like, we need to take him to the hospital. So we go up to the hospital. It's all dark. And we come in, we're holding our little boy. And while we're standing there, we've been about 10 minutes sitting down, actually, when a social worker, a caseworker walks in with a 2-year-old baby who had just been beaten up. And there's blood on his head. Someone had yanked all the hair out of his head. And he walks right in front of my wife. It was like we were invisible. Walks in front of her and he describes to the nurse everything, all the torture that's happened to this baby. And Carrie, of course, being a mother, she starts crying. And I go, sir. And he looks like, oh, there's people here. I go, sir, I'm Richard Paul Evans. He goes, I know who you are. I go, well, where'd you go at 2 a.m. with a baby? He goes, I don't know. I'll start calling and waking people up. He goes, if you had your shelter, it would be far less traumatic. We would take them there. And then he walked away. And Carrie just put her head down like this and she just cried. And then she looked at me and she goes, build a shelter. I don't care what it costs. I don't just finish that shelter, whatever it takes. I don't care anymore. I'll support you. And that was 20 years ago. And she supported me ever since. And it still wasn't easy. And we still had huge obstacles. And, but she never questioned it again. I thought God works in such interesting ways that he put an abused child and let Carrie see what we were really doing.
Wow, that is a powerful story. And that's why it's so important to have authors like you and human beings like you that can change the lives of so many others, but through the gift of not just building a shelter, but your words. And I know it's changed my life, and I know it's changed millions and millions of other lives. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I've got to ask you one other thing. You might not want to talk about this, but you say that you're the world's greatest crepe maker.
I am.
Oh, really?
I figured that if I could learn to make two things, I can't cook at all. But if I can learn to two things, I used to live in Taiwan, so it's like I make the best fried rice and I make the best crepes. The rest you don't want to eat anything I make, but those things I got right. And I figured I'd rather be really good at a couple things than mediocre at everything else, and that's what I do.
Well, I'm going to have to try one of your crepes one of these days. Do you have a couple more minutes to stick around?
I do.
We're going over, but okay. Derek, our producer, can you tell us, Derek, if we've got any questions for Richard?
I do. I have some different questions. Actually,
Okay.
Richard answered a couple of them already, but let's see if I can't get a little bit more out of him here. Let's see.
Okay.
The first one that I really liked from Gary was, do you ever get writer's block? I know you said you like to kind of walk through writer's block and get inspiration through there, but I'll group that question with another. What do you do when you get writer's block, and how do you find inspiration to keep writing if you maybe aren't feeling it?
Okay. Well, first of all, deadlines keep me writing because writing is always painful. I once got in a fight with Carrie. She's like, "You're not writing enough," because it's like I like to put it off, and I go, "You write a book." I go, "You write one chapter. Give me one chapter." I go, "It hurts." It's like, "Yeah, I do put it off. I know." And so, having said that, and I was just on with my daughter on a show with 3 other best-selling authors, and they all say the same thing. It's painful, and people say it's so much fun. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, but having said that, it's a gift and it's a privilege to be able to write. And I would not do any other thing. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Couple things. One is I'm driven by my readers from the love I have for my readers, that they deserve the best I can give them. So that's one thing that keeps me writing through the night. And so it comes from a matter of gratitude. I'm there for every, I mean, look, there's a million books in the bookstore next to mine. Every day I wake up, there's at least a million people who want my job. I mean, that's a little pressure. I'm very fortunate. The second thing is, I believe what Stephen King said. When I read this, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is true. Someone asked where he came up with his ideas, and he says, I find them. They already exist. And the reporter said, I don't believe you. And he goes, well, that's fine, as long as you believe that that's what I believe. These stories already exist. And writer's block is usually when I'm going down the wrong hallway. And so I have to back up and start again. And so the best way to cope with that and to just suck it up and write again is actually I go walking. And Henry David Thoreau said there's a connection between men's legs and their minds. And it's like I think there's a lot of truth to that.
It's funny.
So, well, yeah, I know. There's also a connection between women's legs and men's minds too, but I'm not going there.
Yeah.
But it's true though. When I walk, all of a sudden I've had some of these great moments of breakthroughs. And so I guess when you get writer's block, one thing to do is like, okay, am I really writing what needs to be here? And have the courage to let it go. And sometimes that's terrifying. But if you're going down the wrong way, if you're going down the wrong road, going farther down the road isn't going to make it any better. Okay, just understand that. So sometimes you have to back up and say, why is the story not laying out? Am I doing it wrong?
Do you ever write with an outline?
Not at first. I'll do a really rough outline. There's some people like Terry Brooks, a friend of mine who wrote Sword of Shannara, and he talks about outlining every little thing. And so does James Patterson. I'm the opposite. I feel more like Robin Williams, stepping on the stage and making it up as I go. Yeah. I would rather discover it and see where it goes. How about you, Shemane? What kind of a writer are you?
I'm with you. I have a rough outline, really rough, but I can't do it always metastasizes into something else.
I like that, metastasize.
Yeah.
Well, this is the danger of that, because if you do that too much of outline, you might get stuck. I look at writing a book. It's like walking into an old Victorian mansion. You don't know where the halls lead and the stairways lead, and until you actually get in and start walking through it. And if you have already written out what's going to happen, and you all of a sudden discover something else, you're going to limit your potential. So to have a rough idea, I think is important, but again, I've never ended up with the book I started with, not once.
Yeah, I love that. Derek, what else do we got?
I actually like one of the newest comments. I think this question is very interesting, especially in the times that we live in at the moment. Do you have a biggest fear in terms of writing, or a line that you won't cross or talk about or write about?
something I won't write about. Well, I mean, I've killed more people than Charles Manson. So it's like, I won't write about anything that might cause action or glorify something. I remember I had a business partner who, after my book hit it big, he wanted to be a writer too, and he was a good writer. I thought he could do it, but he wanted to go the opposite side of me, and go really dark. And he had a scene where this guy would kill people and then have sex with them, and that was his whole thing. I go, that's horrific. And he goes, it's just a book. I go, no, people will copy your book. They've copied every book I've written. They will copy it. How are you going to feel about that? And he said, it's not my responsibility. I said, well, then whose is it? That line I don't cross, like, because I'll be attacked from Christians as well as non-Christians. You can't please everyone, but I want to please God. I want to write something that I would be proud to show God, and I also believe I'm inspired. And so there are things that are really intense. I usually, I guess it's the best way I can answer that. I don't write things. I don't like writing darkness. I write about hard things, and yeah, there are people dying and there are suffering, and I do write about hard things. But I believe in the human spirit, and I love writing stories of redemption. I watch The Christmas Carol every year, and I get teary-eyed every time.
Yes.
Every time.
And I do that also with Sound of Music. I love Sound of Music.
Good.
Shemane, I've got one more, so we can't end on a bad question or a darker question. Let's do this, Richard. And I'll ask this one of both of you guys. What's the best dish on your Thanksgiving table? What's your most favorite out of everything?
Shemane, I defer to you to go first.
Okay. Well, I do make a killer apple pie. I'll say that. Yeah. So I wait for the dessert.
Okay. I'll make you a crepe and you make me an apple pie.
Sounds good. I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay. It's got to be the pecan crusted candied yams.
Ooh.
And, yeah, kind of like a Ruth's Chris. I have a sister-in-law who does great comfort food. My wife is kind of fancy, and she likes to do like balsamic vinegar on Brussels sprouts and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I just want mashed potatoes and gravy. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, an apple pie. Yes. With old-fashioned vanilla ice cream.
That's it. That's what's for dinner. And a turkey, a wild turkey. Well, Richard, thank you so much for being here. It's been such an honor to have you, and I hope you will come back again.
I would love to, and I would love to help. I'm looking forward to working with you on your books.
Thank you.
We're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. So lots more from me to come, but also, Richard, how can people find you on social media?
They can go to the Richard Paul Evans fan page. That's the best place to go, and we have a lot of really fun things going on, and they can learn more about my charity, the Christmas Box House. And hopefully support us, because we help a lot of children. In fact, right now we're just getting ready to provide children for 3,000 abused kids. That's a lot. That's a big family to take care of.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. I love what you said. Write the book that you want to write, but also write to please God. That's perfect right there. So I'm going to end it on that note, but thank you again so much for joining me, Richard. And everybody stick around, because we always have to end on a good note, and we've got a couple of funny pet videos to show you. So stay tuned. I'll see you next week.